If we knew the exact reason why things happen, our lives would be so much easier and boring, don't you think? Consumer behavior, much like life, is more complicated than that. It's like your mom saying you have that stomachache because you're always on your phone. Maybe she's right. Maybe she's not. We're gonna find out. I'm talking about this because we're gonna dive deeper into why our moms are always right and why you shouldn't worry about attribution when it comes to working with influencers. I'm Yash, I'm the founder at SARAL, which is an influencer operating system used by hundreds of brands. And after having dozens of these conversations every month with marketers and founders about measuring the impact and incrementality of influencers, I'm here to share why worrying about attribution leads us nowhere. Let's get into the video. I'm gonna break my argument down into three main facts, starting from the consumer, diving a little bit into the dynamics of influencer marketing itself, and then talking about the nature of attribution. So let's dive in, right? Fact number one, the customer journey is no longer a funnel. I know that we all like to think that customers buy in a straight line. We always, even with our conversion rate analysis, we would look at things like site traffic, then product page view, then add to cart, then checkout, and so on. It's almost like we've been programmed to think of it as if it's a straight line, but it's not. The consumer journey it resembles more of a spider web than it does a straight line. So it's pretty much the borderline opposite of what a straight line is. So let me illustrate this with an example. People are not clicking on ads and buying anymore. Let's say, for example, let's take Jack, who's a fitness enthusiast, and he sees a Facebook ad for a new protein supplement. Let's call it Jacked Protein. So he sees this ad, but he thinks, hey, I already have my other protein brand that I use anyway, so I don't want to, looks interesting, but I'm just going to swipe and continue watching my entertaining Instagram stories. So I'm not going to click on that. So he sees that ad, doesn't buy. Then a few days later, he's at a Walmart, he sees Jacked Protein there, and he's like, interesting, and he's buying his protein, but then he picks his usual option anyway, so he doesn't really buy new brand. Then a week later, he's watching some YouTube video about a particular exercise, and that influencer promotes Jacked Protein, and he's like, this is interesting, always wanted to buy from this brand. He finally clicks on the link in the description and goes to the website. So he's like, okay, I'm checking it out, but again, remember, he recently bought his usual brand from Walmart, so he doesn't really need the protein, so he wants it, but he's like, I'm gonna buy it later. Then he's like, okay, let's say he's at his friend's house and he sees Jacked Protein there, and finally he's like, my other box is just about to end, let me just Google this brand. He clicks on a Google ad and he makes the purchase. Now you tell me, in this whole process, which is very normal of how people buy, ask anybody how they came to know about a brand, and if they really truly remember all the touch points, this is what they would say. And so tell me what drove the sale, right? Was it the very initial Facebook ad that he saw while he was scrolling on Instagram? Was it the retail space at Walmart? Was it the influencer on YouTube? Or was it the Google ad, right? What drove the sale? The truth is, everything did. And you cannot look at marketing in a silo. You cannot look at it channel wise. You have to look at it as an entire stack. Now, if you were to ask Google or Meta, they would have wanted Jack to see the ad, click immediately and buy. And I'm sure that if you actually log into the dashboard and see, that's what you would see. You would actually see that the same conversion is tracked on both places, but it's not that easy, right? That is rare. People do not buy in a straight line. Fact remains that the consumer journey is more like a web and no longer a straight line, which makes attribution harder. That brings me to fact number two, which is that influencer marketing is just fundamentally hard to track and attribute. I'm going to illustrate this with a question now. When was the last time you went on Instagram to buy something? My guess is probably never. Understand the consumer psyche. They're not scrolling through TikTok or Instagram to buy something. It's very unlikely that when you want to buy something, you would open Instagram, right? That never happens. You would open Amazon or you would search on Google, right? You don't open Instagram. So it's very difficult for influencers to be the channel to drive direct sales, because the consumers that are consuming content on these platforms are not there to buy. What we also observed from our brands on SARAL is that most of the attributed revenue that we see is only 20 to 30% of the real impact that we see on their top line after they turn on influencers. So for example, if a brand is, let's say, making $100,000 a month, and then they start working with influencers, and then 6 months later they're making $200,000 a month, and I'm assuming that they haven't turned on any other marketing channel, they're now making $100,000 more than they were 6 months ago. But what we would see on the back end in SARAL, even in any sort of, regardless of how robust the tracking is, you would only see around, maybe $25,000 to $35,000 attributed to influencers. But given that no other marketing channels are on, it's very likely that most of the other, 70,000 was also driven by influencer. It's just hard to track because people are not there to buy. It's very rare that somebody is going to look at an Instagrammer's reel and then immediately go to their link in bio and make a purchase. That happens sometimes. It does happen when the time time is right, when everything aligns, but in most cases it does not. So generally it's a very hard to track channel, right? So what you can, however, measure is things like your blended CAC. So you could also run the same experiment that I said that we've done with our brands, is that, okay, let's not run any other marketing channel, or let's not increase spend on any other marketing channel. Let's focus on just influencers for a few months, see the incrementality that it drives towards our top line, and we know that most of it can be attributed to influencers. Or you can use a system like SARAL to track and then apply that 20 to 30% metric that I mentioned to reverse engineer, okay, if this is what is tracked, the real impact is probably way higher than this, right? But do we need to track? Are we, based on all the other channels that are also tracking, let's say meta ads, are we tracking things correctly? Can we trust attribution? Which brings me to fact number 3. Attribution does not mean causation. I get it. You want to know the why, when, how, what behind everything, right? As a marketer, we want to track everything so we know where we can allocate our dollars to get the highest ROI. But just because you can attribute something does not mean it caused it. Fact number 3 is attribution does not imply causation. If you think back to the story I said about Jacked protein early on, I am sure that Google and Facebook would report Jack's conversion as caused by Facebook ads or as caused by Google ads, but we all know it was the entire stack. It was all of those touch points that caused the sale, right? So can we really trust attribution? I also remember I made a video about this pizza place, and I illustrated this attribution thing with a very lovely example and a story that you can check out and leave a link in the I button above. So check that out after this video. But generally the point is that attribution does not imply causation. You cannot trust that, hey, if Google ads is saying that it's driven the sale, yes, maybe it drove the last click of the sale, but did it drive the intent to buy? And as a brand marketer, your goal should be to drive the intent to buy from your brand over others. Those are the 3 main facts that I went over. Fact number 1 was that, hey, you cannot make the customer journey a single straight line. It is no longer a funnel, it is more like a web. Second fact was influencer marketing, given the nature of things, is just hard to track and attribute. And final fact was attribution does not imply causation. So at this point, you may be feeling a little bit confused, a little bit scared even. Am I saying influencers are hard to track and attribute? Yes. Am I implying that there is literally no way in which you can measure it and actually track how it's performing? Absolutely not. You just need to reframe your mindset and look at different metrics than what you may be used to with your classical performance marketing. So let's dive into that. How do you measure and track influencer marketing? I'm going to share 3 metrics that you should be looking at when you're wanting to track and understand the ROI, the true ROI of influencer marketing. The first one is your MER, your marketing efficiency ratio. This is probably the most accurate way to see real business, like cold hard cash impact that influencers are driving. And this is the experiment that I told you about, right? You look at your data from say last quarter without doing influencer marketing, you note down your revenue and your marketing spend, and then you divide, you basically find out your, hey, we made $100,000 and we spent $10,000 to make the $100,000. That means our MER is 10x. From here, then you start doing influencer marketing, don't change anything else, and then you do the same calculation, say 3 to 6 months down the line, and then you look at your MER, and very likely it's going to be higher. It's going to be, let's say you made $200,000 and you only spent $15,000 to make that, right? Your ratio increases. So you look at your MER between 2 time ranges, assuming everything else remains constant, you know that influencers have driven that much incremental impact for your brand. So track your MER. The second metric that you should track is your overall CAC, or it's also called blended CAC movement, right? So look at similar analysis, look at what your CAC was before across all channels, then start doing influencers. So the first one only works when you don't have anything else running, when you don't have anything else scaling. The second one, overall CAC or blended CAC, can work even if you have other channels running, which is what's more realistic. So look at your CAC, your blended CAC across all your channels before you start running influencer marketing. Once you start doing influencer marketing, look at your blended CAC again in 3 to 6 months. Very likely your CAC is going to drop. Now, why does this happen, right? Influencers obviously educate your market about your product, right? So your ads tend to perform better. So people are more likely to click on an ad of which they've already seen an influencer promote the product, right? Versus another one that is just like a cold ad. If you reuse your influencer content on ads, UGC or authentic UGC gets higher click-through rates. If you have your UGC on landing pages and in your retargeting emails, those get better conversion rate, right? And then your branded search also increases, because if you have say 50 to 100 influencers promoting you non-stop, and I've made another video on how influencers are a moat around your brand and you should watch that definitely. But then when you have all these influencers influencers promoting you, your branded search rises, your brand awareness rises, which means people will search about you more often. Maybe your CAC on Google Ads keeps falling, and so on and so forth, right? So influencers have this impact. So when you measure your overall CAC or your blended CAC, you will see that after you turn on influencer, you will see that your overall CAC reduces. So that's the second metric that you should track. And then the third metric, which is similar, is you track your overall ROAS, right? So your overall ROAS is a blend of both the cold hard cash ROI, like how much money have you made attributed to influencer, and you can do that easily using tools like SARAL. Just use our affiliate tracking and it'll track whenever an influencer drives a sale for you. So do that and add in your content value, especially in SARAL. In the report that we give you, we track both your cold hard cash ROAS and your overall ROAS. Your overall ROAS includes the content value. Especially if you're running seeding campaigns, you know that getting posts from influencers is difficult. You know that that asset itself has value. So you add on that value in your ROAS estimation. It gives you a more realistic picture of how your program is doing and how much true value beyond just cash you're getting from your influencer program. So we've covered how the customer journey has changed and why tracking is difficult and everything. And now we covered the 3 metrics that you need to track to make sure that your influencers are generating revenue and incrementality for your brand. And that's it. Instead of trying to track every single sale back to that one Instagram story, it's better to look at the bigger picture. How's your brand doing overall? Are you spending wisely? Is your CAC reducing? Are people talking about you more? Play the long game. Build an unforgettable, robust brand and not just a machine that turns $1 into $2, right? And then the beauty of this is when you actually focus on the long picture and focus on building a true, unforgettable brand, you will build a machine that not just turns $1 into $2, it'll turn $1 into $5 or $10, right? So you'll have a better ROAS when you focus on the broad picture. If you found this video helpful, if you now know that why influencer marketing is hard to track and what you should track instead, if this helped out, leave your thoughts or questions in the comments below. I know this is a little bit of a contentious topic. If you disagree with me especially, let me know in the comments. I always like when there is exchange of thoughts and ideas, and we've got tons of more insights and stories on the way, so subscribe. And if you need a platform that will help you do influencer marketing easily and simplify your tracking also, go to getsaral.com. I'll leave a link in the description. It's a free trial. Check it out and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.